All right, looks like we're live now, I think. Ugh. Is anyone there? Hello. Okay, someone said hi already, so I guess it's all working. Can anybody from North America send me I can hear you? Someone from Europe, I can hear you? No, chat box. I said send me, yeah. Kendra, okay, that's North America. WA, is that Australia or Washington? Western Australia or Washington, not sure. And Holland, India, Holland, Spain. Okay, looking good. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. And let's discuss Way of the Mirror Consorts. This class arose because of questions about what is a mirror consort. But I'd like to give an overview of the whole idea, the whole vidya of mirror consorts, since it is one of the 5 ways, the most important paths of Trikamahasya Yoga, of cultivating an experience with your own essence nature. So, short contextualization in history is that many times when people talk about mirror consort path with me, they'll say, I've never heard of such a thing. Did you make it up? And I have to chuckle a little bit because they've known about it their whole lives. Like everybody in the Indian Dharma who knows what rishis are, who knows what Mahasiddha couples are, etc. They're talking about mirror consort path all the time. They're taking the practices of people that have been in the mirror consort path for literally thousands of years, when you consider it began with the rishis. But they just didn't think about it in this term. So they're thinking, what is this mirror consort thing? It sounds so fresh and new and strange. And actually, it's been going on forever in Veda and Tantra and Taoism and Dzogchen. So the tradition comes straight through from ancient times. Because it started out with sexual practices in the shamanic times when people were using the proto-tantric shamanic era, when the shamans were using sexuality as a way to generate energy, as a way to create confluence between their polar energies within inside them and the universe, to create a cohesion, to gain more of a extant and expressed shamanic model of the universe, to bring it into being, to gain power to heal, power to prophesy, all the things that shamans needed. And the proto-tantrics were into that as well, big time. The very old tantric texts that we have surviving in Sanskrit very much were favoring gaining siddhis or magic powers from tantric practice over liberation. You know, the texts on were very big, very large, some of them. And you could see like all these chapters dedicated to creating power, and then a little bit about realization of your true nature. And, you know, that's because that's kind of how it is to basically, and even most people today that would say they're on the spiritual path, how many are really going for liberation? How many really understand what that means? Most people would have cities, let's say magic powers or accomplishments in the form of a nice, comfortable life. I'm less reactive. I'm enjoying life more. You know, people think about spirituality in these terms until the view really deepens in them and they go, oh, actually, I'm living in a dream and I want to really escape that dream. And I want to become the dreamer. And then it's okay to be in the dream when you're the dreamer, right? But that motive takes a long time for people to come up with. Most times people are really wowed and wonderful by all of the emotional, mental skills that come with tantric yoga practice. And the worst part, when the ego is attached to it, look at me, I'm a tantrika and I'm a tantric teacher, that kind of thing. So anyway, mirror consort teachings have been around since then. The origin there with the early proto-tantric yogins, the shaman tantrikas. And it went through many, I think, evolutes until people who were less interested in just having siddhis, less interested in just having sexual practice to produce powers, started to understand that, hey, there's a liberation technology here, a really powerful one. Until you can see by the time, let's see, 800, 900, 1000 CE comes around, things were becoming very formalized in the tantric philosophies about it and practices and so on. So you can see it in the writing of Abhinavagupta and his Param Guru, the fusion of Prakasha light, that's the pure spaciousness of pure light that we call Prakasha, with the self-reflective, the Vimarsha Shakti, That kind of thing was then being played out in sexual rituals by then. In other words, what's called in the ancient schools the Vimarsha Shakti, which also is related to touch, a really beautiful double entendre there, is a reflexive recognition of your true nature. Your true nature there is, in that terminology, called the prakasha, right? The sense of Bhairava's essence as pure light of wisdom. So in that reflexive experience of that, that was said to be union of Shakti with Shiva, sexual union of Shakti with Shiva. They're already one, but now they're playing out the experience of that one, expressing it as a dynamism instead of a quiescence, right? So you can see this already in the writing about 800, 900, 1000 Common Era in the Abhinavagupta line. And it was everywhere. It was in the Sahajiya cults of Vaishnava Tantra from Bengal. You know, it was everywhere. In its own form, it was everywhere. Like even in Taoism, it was somewhere in there as dual cultivation. I was introduced to the idea as dual cultivation. But anyway, as this evolved, it became more and more subtle, less and less based on the sexualized meditation or the sexualized ritual or the sexual yogas, indeed. And we'll touch on that. So that the way I understood this mirror consort, way of mirror consorts was from the Shambhavopaya level, that it's not really a physical practice per se. The physical practice is adjunctive, meaning the sexual practice with your consort is elective, let's say elective. You don't need to do it at all. Of course, in Abhinavagupta's time and in his way of writing and talking, if you don't know who he is, he was a great Shaiva scholar, practitioner. He had 2 consorts, and he was very into aesthetics and sensuality and sexuality as consciousness. All right. He believed and taught about consciousness as transcending all physicality, simultaneously to being consciousness most vividly and accurately expressed in sexual orgasm. He taught them both, and he showed how they could be seen as the same thing, really. And he used the same terminology to describe them, which is, you know, a really interesting point. Okay. But in the way I receive these teachings, the sexual aspect is not integral to it. It's a meditative journey. The sexual aspect can be brought into the meditative journey. So if you're going to have sex with your partner, then this would come into it as well, okay? If you want to. You don't even have to, because another aspect of it is the integration meditation, not the formalized practice sessions. And we'll get into that in a bit. Excuse me. Okay. So when we look at Trikamasa Yoga, we can see that we have the 5 ways, and there were 6 ways really, but the 6th way we don't teach, way of the Vajra. And it's interesting, the way it breaks down is there's way of fire, which is Kundalini Hatha Yoga, and that's in the right channel. And there's way of meditation in the left channel, or way of meditation in the central channel. It depends how you look at it. But I think it's left channel. And then there's way of water in the left channel, and then there's way of the warrior in the right channel. So it's leaving what's the central channel. This is the way of the Vajra, and way of mirror consorts. So the 2 for the central channel are way of the Vajra, way of mirror consorts. Way of the Vajra we can't teach. It's just impossible today because people are not at that level where they can benefit from such a high introductory approach where you come in at the highest level of practice and you finish at the same level. It's just hard to find. So it exists as a potential, a philosophical potential nowadays. Also, it's difficult culturally to train somebody in the way of the Vajra because there's no script. It's a moment-to-moment experience with your guru. It's guru-disciple interaction at the highest level, blowing your doors off, basically. So people can't get with it psychologically. They're not ready for it. And socially, society-wise, having to work so much, et cetera, it's just not possible these days. So that one's kind of waning. But, however, the way of mirror consorts, which is a central channel practice in the way I understand it, is, I think, holding the greatest potential as the number 1 way to cultivate our essence out of all the ways that we have in all the traditions. I believe it, because we are rapidly going towards a place where we're non-theistic as human beings. We also want to go, our minds are evolving to where we can handle higher levels of understanding, and we can start to enter into a central channel direct approach eventually. I still think, of course, this is not yet, but I think right now we still have to go through a fair bit of preliminary practices to make sure we are in the right place before we are ready for mirror consort path. All of this is kind of an abstract introduction. You're probably saying, what are you talking about? So let's get into it a little more down to earth details before we go out there again. So it's a path of recognize our own true nature. If I were to look at it from a Kashmir Shaiva standpoint, non-dual Shaiva Tantra, it was introduced to me as a Shambhavopaya practice. That's the most subtle of the most subtle, where the Vimarsha Shakti is in relationship to the impulse Shakti, the pure Shiva awareness, the Prakasha, in an ongoing romance. And what happens in this path is that the two people in the couple, it's a monogamous path, we'll get into that too, but the two people in the relationship of the mirror consorts are acting as the mirror or the Prakasha, the Dharmakaya for each other. So Sukalia is my Dharmakaya, my mirror of pure essence. I am her Dharmakaya, her mirror of pure essence. Simultaneously, this is fascinating too, simultaneously, I am experiencing myself as the Vimarsha Shakti, like the recognition power. I want to recognize myself in her ability to create a moment of awakening in the mirror-like essence that she has. And it's basically not that she's contriving to do it, to give me transmission. In the highest level, it's each moment of our day's interactions. If I have the proper view and the proper preliminary training, I can be triggered into a type of Shaktipata of a level of 7, 8, or 9 on 9 levels. In other words, I can be triggered into over and over again realization of my nature at the first level, a confirmation of that at the second level, and at the third level, an abiding and integrating of it with every single moment of my day. And she can do the same. So it's incredible and fascinating in this way. Now, also what happens in the mirror consort training is that because I take her to be my guru, she is seeing her role as Dharmakaya, as pure essence, Prakasha. And then she is seeing me as the Vimarsha, trying to recognize its own nature, right? Very interesting. And vice versa. So one of the characteristics of the mirror path is that we take our partner as our teacher, our guru. That doesn't mean we don't have our heart guru anymore. We do. But we want to understand that in the day-to-day, moment-to-moment reality of the relationship, the intensity of relating that's there, or the proximity of relating that's there, the constancy of it that's there as well. The guru won't be there most likely. It's our relationship-oriented practice. And if you've been in our work for the last 30 years, one thing I've emphasized over and over and over again is that Tantra is a practice and way of life of, Tantra is a practice and a way of life of relating. Tantra is all about relating, right? Once you go beyond Tantra transformation and direct entry, Tantra is a whole nother level. Like the Tibetans or the Buddhist Tantrikas don't call the direct entry point practices, they don't call that Tantra really. Because really it kind of isn't at that point. Tantra is really much more about transformation. Anyway, so you can understand what kind of maturity level we have to have from the very beginning just to see our consort as our guru, or as a stand-in, or as a exact replica of our heart teacher, and treat them with the exact same reverence, exact same gratitude, exact same love, exact same focus, awareness, present moment awareness and attention, surrender, non-resistance. Whew, there's a lot of training there, a lot we have to talk about. So that's just to wet your whistle a bit. So there are kind of 3 characteristics of the mirror consort training. And I saw someone just flashed up here. Are you saying it's Shambhavopaya? Yes, it's Shambhavopaya practice. Shambhava Upaya or Shambhavopaya. Both ways are correct to say it. Shambhavabhaya practice, because it's the most subtle of the most subtle. In Shambhavabhaya practice, to be technical about it in Sanskrit now for a moment, switching into my Kashmir Shaivist years and way of speaking, it is the dynamic. Shambhavabhaya is the dynamic of the Vimarsha Shakti, or the power of Pratyabhigna, the power of self-recognition, constantly reigniting and recognizing its own nature, right? Its own mirror-like or wisdom-light, unlimited, non-dual, inert wisdom-light nature. That's what makes a Shambhavabhaya practice. So it's really the highest level practice. It's a direct entry point practice. Okay. Now, there are some basic characteristics of the mirror consort path. And one of them is that you take your consort as your guru, as a perfect replica with no difference between your Sat Guru, your Tsawe Lama, your heart teacher, anything you want to call them, that one teacher, And yes, Trikamasa Yoga is a one teacher path. So unlike modern versions of Tantra out there, because we don't really think it leads to very good results. We'll see in about 500 or 1,000 years. The people that are espousing multiple gurus as the way these days, I personally don't see it working. So that's just the way we are. I'm a traditionalist and it works, so we're going with it. I learned something a long time ago. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and don't reinvent the wheel, right? Fine. It's fine. So, yes, this is my one guru. This is my one consort, one mirror. She is all in one to me. That's number one. Number two, she is my committed partner in marriage, in what we call Vajra marriage. The same terminology that's used for the guru is used here. An unbreakable commitment, which never gets turned back on. You never go back on it, and so forth. And that's what leads us to liberation. Because if we play into the fickleness of, every year I have a new partner, every month I have a new partner, and I make them my Vajra partner, and I say, oh, I'm doing mirror consort training with you, my serial monogamy approach to life, or my polyamorous approach to life, there will not be result. It just will not give result. We could talk about why in the question and answer section if you want, but you got to get specific about it, because it's pretty clear that, like in the oil drilling business, you can drill 200 wells a foot deep and get nothing, or one well 200 feet deep and you finally get oil. It's very, very simple. And monogamy itself creates its own crucible of grist for the mill and friction. For those of us who are very free, footloose and fancy free, like Enneagram 7s and 8s, and we just want to get around and do whatever, it creates its own energy of restriction, which is great to work with. So you don't have, you get something to work with, getting over that resistance to monogamy. And then you see the beauty of it when it finally dawns and you finally get the city of monogamy. You get the power and the beauty of it and see how amazing it is. But serial monogamy is different. Now, I want to take a moment to describe that before I go to the next characteristic of the mirror consort relationship. Serial monogamy is when we're checking it out. We're faithful to one person and we stay committed to that one person until you break up and you go to another person. Now, the ancients, when they started these practices, maybe because they didn't live as long as we do now, I can't say, but they didn't have the idea of serial monogamy working for mirror consort relationships, nor polyamory. And that's because anybody who's been in a very committed monogamous love relationship knows that if you have polyamory going, or if you have an out where in a year or two you think you might break up, you go to the next person, you never have to really plumb the depths of your own psyche, because you never really even get to plumb the depths of your partner's psyche. And that never then reflects your own psyche. I mean, the traditional name for this path, really traditional path, we call it way of mirror consorts just to make it into English, but the cycle of teachings is the Darpana Darshana, which means mirror vision, mirror view, mirror experience, experientially through the vision, which also includes touch, Vimarsha, right? So that was the original name of it. And for me to have my partner be an awakening into my own essence, what you find is there has to be a real commitment. It has to be years spent together developing that, getting deep in it. It's like a meditation practice. How much are you going to get out of meditating for 5 years? Realizing your nature? Probably not. Most people don't. Same thing in a marriage. How deep will you know your partner in 5 years? I mean, we still find out things about each other all the time. It's amazing. It's actually amazing. It's not that temporal information we know about each other's histories or likes and dislikes, preferences, directly brings about that essence, but it opens the intimacy more. And after all of the spiritual work is the path of ultimate intimacy. If you take all the ways and clump them together, you can call them all ultimate intimacy, the way of ultimate intimacy. And we've coined that term and we use it in our school because it's ultimate intimacy with your own essence in all its expressions. That intimacy in way of mirror consorts is founded on the intimacy you have with your partner. So withholds don't work and everything. And here I get ahead of myself. So let me just keep going. So there is monogamy, closed monogamy, not serial monogamy. You figure out the one you want to be with, and then you pick them, and that's it. I'm in my third marriage. I thought about having mirror consort relationship when I started to learn about it, just about it in the beginning of my first marriage. That's when I was learning about it. In the second marriage, I knew about it, and I was looking for somebody to do it with, and I thought I'd found the person to do it with. Now, in my first marriage, I was just too young and immature in the idea of what makes a good relationship. And to be honest, I didn't listen to the astrologers, which said, this lady loves you very much and you love her very much, but you are her brother and she is your sister astrologically. And eventually the passion is going to peter out pretty quickly. And you're going to be left with this ho-hum, beautiful friendship. And that happened. And I'm not saying that can't be the basis for a great marriage, especially if you find yourself in one like that already after you do the astrology, after you've been married and had kids already. No problem. You make it work. But I wasn't in that position. We didn't have kids yet. And when I assessed my maturity and my ability to assess my partner correctly, I for my partner for me. And I realized I wasn't mature enough. And I wanted to be married so bad and have a family that had obscured my vision, really. So that one wasn't right. And luckily I didn't start there. I didn't take a mirror consort committed monogamous relationship there. Didn't commit to one. And then in the second marriage, I had, there was a fair bit of time off between the two, 4 or 5 years. And then I finally, or more than that, actually 6 or 7 years, then I finally said, wow, I think I found somebody who matches my spirituality and has this kind of commitment and so forth. But again, it was a bit too quick. Should have waited another year or two. Probably would have figured it out that it wasn't quite matched well for other reasons, on both sides. And luckily we didn't take that real commitment to each other. But now in my later years, I feel quite well matched by my new mirror consort and was able to take that full commitment and really enter into the practice of mirror consort without applying its principles here or there in my serial monogamy relationships. Okay. So serial monogamy, it's not about. And, if you're like 22 and you got a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and you're thinking, I want to do this with my partner and I'm like 22 because I know this is going to last forever. If you haven't been together for 5 years already, you're not married with kids at 22, I'd give it time because you have to be very committed for this. So that's another requirement. So one of the characteristics is teacher, the consort as your teacher. The other one is a committed monogamous relationship. And the other one is that you have a meditation practice, a committed meditation practice that has yielded results or is yielding results. And there's really no number about this. I kind of made it up 5 to 10 years when I was reading about another teacher who teaches like mirror consort relationship stuff. And I said, oh, they asked for 10 years from their students. That's pretty cool. And I could see that the way I learned it from my first teachers, that was the idea anyway. You were already working through all the preliminaries you'd finished. All the Hatha Yoga preliminaries were finished as well. And you were established in your Hatha Yoga, Kundalini Hatha Yoga practice. And then you were deep into your Data Yoga practice. And this was when the idea would be introduced. That, in its own is 5 or 7 or 10 years. So I said, okay, 5 to 10 years, let's call it. That's a very good guideline before anybody should consider going into mirror consort relationship. Okay. Now, where people would enter into this relationship or enter into this kind of teaching in the old days was at a much higher level than we're prepared for now. So, but yet I think the path is so useful, so powerful, and so efficient for realization that I think we had to open the door to relative beginners. We had to change the rules basically and let beginners in. But what then becomes the requirement is certain courses, certain programs that we run now through Trika Mahasiddha Yoga that are going to prepare the mirror consort path follower better for this path. Things you don't need as much in the other paths that are more solo oriented that you absolutely have to have when you're coming into a dual practice path like this. So, some of the things that we recommend are not the Enneagram of personality. Well, you have to have that as a basic. We recommend Enneagram of personality so you know yourself better. But the second level is Enneagram of relationship, Enneagram of relating. So we think that's really important. And in that one, we also cover Enneagram of process a little bit, the third one, because we really want to understand ourselves, how our Enneagram fixation, character fixation meets with our partners, and how the process that goes on between us follows the 9-stage cycle as well to go from inception to resolution back to essence. So that's important. I believe the 6 realms understanding is very important. At the very least, the psychological level of the 6 realms. If you have the 6 realms yoga, even better. You get stuck where you're in a stuck situation with your consort and you failed at recognizing your nature and their presence due to some psycho-emotional, mental, emotional blockage, and you want to go work it out. And the 6 realms yoga, which realm is fixating, you go and do your practice of that, and you come back and you re-engage, reestablish the intimacy, boom, and there it is again. So that's helpful for that. It's actually, these are all prerequisites, Then there's a communication training that was developed just for mirror consorts that I give, and that's kind of important too, because it's sort of like, what's it called? Nonviolent communication in some ways, but not all of it. Maybe 50% similar. It's more geared towards Tantra, but it's got some of those qualities. I mean, I don't know because I never took nonviolent MVC. I never took it, but one of my students from Brazil is really into it and has informed me a bit about it. So I think it's got some characteristics that are the same. Let's see. I can't read my own writing here. I just wrote down a few trigger notes here. Yeah. There's solo self-discovery practices that go on in the preliminary phase 2. You have to kind of know yourself. This is really important. This is why it was a higher level practice. Students in the old days would kind of know themselves after 5 or 10 years of practicing under a guru and working on their stuff and seeing their closed symbols and treasury of worms, all their bad karmas, limiting karmas. And you'd work that stuff out. You'd not be, you'd be kind of baked when you got together with your partner. Because like I said, remember, it was a Shambhavopaya practice, quite high up. So we're filling the gaps that we're missing for that now. So one of the things is solo self-discovery practices. This means you're doing contemplations that you would do like we have in the preliminary course. Those are excellent. And now we would tailor them towards, and this is what we'll do in the mirror consort trainings that we run down here in Costa Rica or wherever we go to do them, but I want to do them here. We would tailor it to mirror consorts, contemplations that would help us discover where we have problems with intimacy, where we have problems with our energy flow, etc. Shakti of relating, Shakti of sexuality, and so forth. This is also why we created the Red Bindu, Awakening the Red Bindu training to help people get in touch with this. And people say, well, I don't have a partner yet. Can I do the practices? And we're like, sure. And you can take all these courses. And then the sexual practices, there are solo exploration sexual practices that can be done. And we can, they would be taught on these trainings. Obviously, nothing is done in person or physical. It's just described. You take good notes, you write the manual, you get in the manual, and you can go home and try them on your own. And that's crucial, because if you are in the relationship and you're coming into it knowing that you have a lot of baggage from religion that you had before or wounding that you had before, it's going to make the process difficult. It's good even if you're in a committed love relationship already, let's say, and you grew up with a family that was really weird around sexuality and your partner had a few wounds around sexuality, abuses. Then when you come together, it's going to make it really difficult to be with each other and enter into this higher level of understanding and relating where there's no resistance or minimal resistance and so forth. So it's much better to work through psycho-emotionally as much as you can separately, even if you're in a marriage that's already monogamous and committed, and work through your own sexuality as much as you can and then come together. Okay? So, okay. You can keep the questions coming. I'm probably going to get to all of them because I think this is a super important topic. People have asked about it a lot. I haven't written anything on it really. It's kind of our secret thing. We don't like to write too much about it because to me, the way it was given to me, there was nothing written. There was no text to reference. There was only like, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika has chapter 3, but that's all sexual practice for realization, which is great. But I believe the bulk of this way of the mirror consorts is not sexual practice. The bulk of it is an integration practice, moment to moment, entering into your essence through constantly self-recognizing. But there are specific cues and ways to do that in meditations that make that more powerful. And that's pretty much the sum and substance of the middle level and advanced level of this path. Okay. So I'm going to rely on really good questions coming in so that you guys can trigger all of the ideas that need to come out about this way of mirror consort, what is a consort, and so forth. Because it's just too much to get out of my head if I sit here and try to remember it. But as you ask questions and trigger it, it all comes flying out, which is usually the case. Now, so the first phase then, what we're looking at is, after the preliminaries, is a generation stage where we're generating energy. We're exposing unknown or unknowable, unknown or unresolvable to this point karmas through interactions. It's interactions that you're having with your mirror consort in a committed crucible of a full commitment to liberation. Each of you are saying, I'll rather die than not get liberated in this lifetime, and I'm bringing you with me. You have this sense that no matter how hard it's going to be, no matter what comes up, we're going to go through it. We're going to go through, even if we broke every dish in the kitchen, arguing, Italian, Greek style, doesn't matter. We're going to go through it. We're committed to it. And on the other side of it, we're going to have revelation. This is the generation stage. Now, also, it might just be like a momentary resistance. Oh, why'd she leave that wet towel on the floor out of the shower? She always does that. When you relax and open, that kind of thing, no resistance. So you're teaching yourself this at every moment. Sometimes it's a hyperbolic situation. Sometimes it's not. Depends how much it's up for you. How deep is this karma? How deep is it protecting through buffering your own essence, right? How linked to this karma is your self-image formation, and how much will you protect it at all costs so you don't have to get realized? This is what your ahankar's job is. So depending how strong that is, that's how strong the reaction usually is. But you're going to, again, expose unknowable or unseeable, unresolvable karmas through interactions within a crucible of a full commitment to spiritual development. Full. This is my most important thing, and everything else is secondary. Everything, including my family, including my work, including my projects, my liberation for the benefit of all beings, and the liberation of my consort for the benefit of all beings is the number one priority in our life. And then family and all the other things we do are imbued with blessing power through our practice, through our understanding of that. A lot of people have a hard time with that. Oh, family's first, no matter what. Well, that won't work, to be honest. It won't work. Your family's beautiful. My family's beautiful. And I would take a bullet for my family. It's an inner understanding that there is nothing beyond the Dharma, the view of the Dharma, the reality of liberation. And this doesn't mean that you do anything less for the family. We do everything with our family. We love our family. And like I said, I'm highly dedicated and loyal to my family, but the commitment in your own essence level has to be to your liberation, number one. Otherwise, it's too easy to slip away from facing yourself, facing your demons, as it were, when you're in the moment of ultimate intimacy with your mirror consort. It just allows for that slippery room to come out. So the other characteristic is unbroken intimacy. The crucible that all this occurs in is a full-on commitment to your own liberation and your liberation of your mirror consort for the benefit of all beings. That third part's extremely important. Benefit of all beings, not just you two. And that you are committing to unbroken intimacy each moment. And that's really hard because we love to draw back into our own little world. This doesn't mean we share everything going on in our mind, share everything going on in emotion. It's a palpable sense of no guarding and ultimate vulnerability and non-resistance that we maintain during the developmental stage, phase 1 here, with our partner, right? So that's basically the environment that's generated. And this first phase is fairly content driven. It can be content driven, like disagreeing about stuff or, it has the energy of Shakti to work with. It's not the direct slipping in of the Shambhavapaya. This is more Anavapaya. If I put it into the Kashmir Shaivist upayas, right? There's subject object to be worked out, to come into union. It's also more the Shaktopaya, but it's not Shambhavapaya. So in this way, the way I was instructed in Trikamasa Yoga, my guru said, no matter what practice you're doing, no matter which way you're practicing and what practice you're in that moment, no matter what moment you're in, if you find yourself in a dualistic situation, an avapaya, no problem. Keep working it right in that situation authentically, and you'll slip into semi-non-dual. Shaktopaya. And then keep working that, be authentic with that, and you'll find yourself slipping into Shambhavapaya, right in the same practice, in the same moment, in the same session, and overall in your whole trajectory of practice. You move from an avapaya to Shaktopaya, Shambhavapaya. The idea that some people start at Shambhavapaya and finish today, a lot of teachers like to say they were born that way, and come on. I think it's a bunch of bull, to be honest. Everybody starts off with subject-object duality consciousness, and we keep it until we're ancient. The idea is not to slip into a consciousness where there is no understanding that subject-object duality exists. It's that you're supposed to slip into an experience, a direct experience that hosts subject-object duality without resistance, while you yourself are abiding in a deeper experience than mere subject-object, anavapaya existence. Okay? All right. So in the first part of the mirror consort sadhana, it's to see your negative psycho-emotional patterns in a reflective mirror of your consort. If I sum it up, you may get lucky and go right into essence a few times. That's awesome. It may happen in the sexual yogas you can learn at this level as well. So if you are learning the sexual practices of meditation at this level in phase 1, they're very much about generating energy, health, vitality, etc. But as it relates more to the self-liberating aspect of the mirror consort training, the sexual practices are yogic based, meaning you're working with each other as subject-object energies, and you're trying to fuse them through the action of your raising the energy of pleasure, of bliss, of expansion, all that kind of thing. So you're not entering directly into it where you're already in that state, and anything you do is already in that state and can't even enhance it anymore. That's in the completion stage. That's much later. So here you're doing what most people try to do with sexual practice, which is to generate the state of their own essence nature with their partner, slip out of the subject-object duality, right? And there are sexual yogas, practices for that within this path. But like I said, they're not essential. So if there's some situation, let's say I'm 80 and my partner is 85, and we just don't feel like having sex anymore, zero libido, it's not necessary. It would be obstructive at that point if you had zero libido. So the sexual practices are there for the people who still have lust, still want to transform that lust into into compassion, transform passion into compassion. They're there for people that are still living a household life and want to enjoy that expression of sexuality as an expression of the divine. And that's why they're there. When you go into the completion stage, that's when the partner is used completely as a mirror of essence. You're not seeing your partner anymore as just this limited human being that you're relating to, and you got to remember the practice, and you have to start to do non-resistance. No, your partner is seen as a mirror, unbroken all the time. And we have a saying in this kind of level of practice, like a fish jumping from a still lake. And actually, like it says in the first chapter of Shiva Sutras, the very last verse, you enter the lake. This means the lake of consciousness in the heart. The heart is said to have this big lake in it. And the center is a tree, a wish-fulfilling tree, Kalpataru. So in this reference of the fish jumping in that lake, it's that whatever happens in your day, even though the lake is disturbed, in that moment of disturbance, that's what intensifies the experience of your ultimate essence. Easier said than done. That's why it's Shambhavapaya practice and takes the first few stages below it to create a basis for that as we move into it. Okay. So your partner in the completion stage is the mirror of essence, purified object of your devotion, extension of your own energy in a sense, in that way, in a beautiful way. Now, in the generation stage, it's really good to have the partner be the object of your devotion. But then, of course, it's going without saying that you can't enter into that if you still have any codependency, if you haven't worked out issues of being a doormat to a person and worshiping them. And like when I was younger, if my female partners were not happy that day, showing some kind of sadness, disappointment, frustration, immediately before I went through psychotherapy and stuff, immediately I took it as, what did I do wrong? How did I disappoint her? Oh my goodness, we're over, like a drama queen kind of thing would go on in my mind. And sometimes I'd chase them around and try to find out if it's true. And they'd look at me like, you're crazy. And it came out later that I absorbed this kind of patterning from dealing with my mother. There you go, classic psychology about your mom or your dad or whatever. So getting through that was really important. That would have been in the way of mirror consort relationship activity of having my partner as the object of my devotion. It would have been mixed up with codependency and other things and never would have gotten to the aspect of devotion that's needed in mirror consort work. Okay. So that kind of covers it, the basics I wanted to cover just to open up the discussion. And now I hope that the question and answer session will really start to bring it out. And I see lots of great stuff here. So let me go back up to the top so I don't miss one. Let's see. Where's the first question? Leah. Oh, wonderful. Nice to be here. Thames, New Zealand. Awesome. Now it's freezed. Hopefully Malu is back. Yep. Carlea, it's a Shambhavapaya practice. Yes. Eva, aren't you supposed to recognize emptiness in everyone eventually? That sounds like what you're describing. Eva, yes, absolutely. You have to recognize it in yourself and you have to recognize it in others. But let me give you a great tip, because this is where I think all this emphasis on Shambhavapaya Shaiva training that we see today by the Shaiva teachers out there, the most of them that I know anyway, it's beautiful, but I don't think it's pragmatic. And to be honest, I don't think it works. I mean, where are all these Westerners who are enlightened Shaivists, completely enlightened Shaivists? I see people posing as it, but hey, I'm from New Jersey and New York. You can't sell me BS. It takes one to know one. So I'm like, no, I don't think so. So where are all these people getting enlightened by going to all these Dzogchen trainings from the West and all these Shaiva people doing Shambhavapaya, I'm Shiva, and it's all just relax. You don't need any effort. It doesn't work. Why? Without foundation, it doesn't work. Of course, you have to get to that place. Dzogchen especially, we can see the example. And let's please use this example for Shambhavapaya of Shaivism, because it's the exact same practice, pretty much the exact same practice. I know adherents on both sides when they'll write me nasty letters. It's not the same, Dzogchen and Shambhavapaya. Look, it's splicing hairs. It's pretty much the same idea at that level, okay? Let's look at it. Dzogchen is, in the Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, the ninth vehicle. After all of the regular Pratyeka Buddhist stuff, all the monastic stuff or like vow stuff of Theravada Buddhism is done, then Mahayana Buddhism is done, then lower level Tantra is done of rituals and stuff, then higher level Tantra is done, then you get to do Dzogchen. That's the traditional way. Nowadays, I think it's a very sad thing to say that most lamas I see teaching Dzogchen are just trying to cash in. So it's quite sad. There are, of course, some great ones who didn't do it like that. Namkha Norbu and others, great ones, Ayang Rinpoche, classic. I'm not saying all by any means, but it's so popular today. And to see geshes and kempos come out of training at a monastery after, 7 to 10 or 12 years of training, immediately the Dzogchen shingle goes up and they're selling Dzogchen retreats. To who? To whom? Westerners who are still completely not having a foundation? No, it just doesn't work like that. So that level of this practice is a very high level of the practice. Now, so seeing everybody as empty is the ultimate goal, Eva. But I give this description of that we need to have foundations going along the way, because my first Shaiva guru said to me, in the end, you have to love everybody. That'll be one of the ultimate qualifiers. You'll know you're enlightened at stage 7 out of 12, which is the first stage of enlightenment, if you love everybody, unconditionally, non-preferentially, not stupid compassion, wise, but unconditional love. And I said, cool, yeah, I'm down. I want that. I get it. I was a Christian when I was younger. I want to be like Jesus, love everybody. And he said, but it's too difficult to do it with everybody. That's why we have outer guru yoga. Love the guru unconditionally with outer guru yoga, and a good guru will love you unconditionally as well, or show you what that experience is of non-duality in there every moment. You can't really do it yet. You just try. trying non-duality is impossible, right? But you just try because it brings up what's in the way of that non-dual love expression. But by focusing on one person, it's really great. So he gave me this saying that comes down in our oral practice tradition that says, love one person perfectly, love all beings perfectly. Love the guru perfectly, love all beings perfectly. And you can focus on the guru for the love project, if you want to call it, or the emptiness project, because the real guru, real lama, never really wants something from you other than your own liberation. I'm not saying that the real guru or lama that's realized doesn't have preferences. I have no problem with that they want to have a piece of pizza instead of a burger, that they're with this mate in their life because they think they're a wonderful, intelligent person versus this one who isn't, or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when they interact with you, that their goal is to get you to awaken, right? Whether you like the method or not, forget it. Their goal, if it's pure motive, that they have the pure goal to get you to awaken, that's a real guru. That person is worthy of your pure devotion of, I want to learn how to love this person unconditionally. When that happens, boom, it goes like an explosion, goes through everybody in the world. And then you can see, do you really love everybody? And you can see in different situations if you're shifted out of that, which means you're not really abiding in your Shiva nature, your Rigpa, your Buddha nature yet. Okay, Ava, it's the same thing for emptiness. Of course, we want to hold the view of everything empty, hold the view of that we are projecting everything out of our minds, our mirror-like essence, everything is in our mirror-like essence, but it gets difficult without a focal point. And that's why I'm so grateful to have a focal point in my life of my mirror consort. Like, you're living with the guru night and day. It's fantastic. So you get this incredible ability to rapidly move down the path using this. Good question. Hopefully I answered it correctly for you or well enough for you. Tao Zostrian, very excellent for now. Okay, you're welcome. Akita, hello Akita, how's New York? So you should be together for years before committing to the way of mirror consorts. Let's say you knew each other and you were together in college and you went your separate ways and you came back together and you had a nice Indian astrology session by my wife and I, and it looks perfect matched, and you already worked through a lot of stuff and you came back and it's right. You'd get a bye. If you were older and you had, enough life experience, you could get a buy and say, okay, this could probably really work. In other words, I could really commit to it. The key thing in this, Akita, is that once you commit, you don't go back. That's why I'm so glad I didn't commit in my first two marriages. Otherwise, I would have been kind of breaking a vow. It got really close in one of them, but I didn't get there. So when the mirror consort training is on, you commit. And then if you break up, you really break that vow. And what's difficult about it is it leaves the other person without that mirror consort to train with. And you've spent years and years together, and maybe you're not in the prime of your life anymore, and it's not easy to find another mirror consort. And maybe it leaves such a deep damage in your psyche that you spend the rest of your life mulling over in your mind what went wrong, things you want to say to that person. Maybe you went from being in love with each other and supporting each other spiritually to being at each other's throats, custody battles, prenups, whatever. And it's all out the window. And then your whole spiritual life is ruined. So in the way that in the old way of Tantra, which I gave a story about from the Sufis the other day, the Sufis had a way where a Sufi sheikh in some traditions would get you to marry the person who drove you crazy in that group. And that was it. You couldn't break up. That was it. And that was to grind down your ego structure. I saw similar kind of things in Indian guruship with telling people to get married because they grind each other down. I also saw gurus that realized that these people were at the place where they don't need to be ground down, but they are really ready for a deep mirror consort commitment, and they'll fly if they get together. They saw the perfect match, and they would tell them to get together and get married. So the key is that either way, you don't break up. If it's you came together for all the great reasons and then it goes horribly wrong, you still don't break up. Both of you have the commitment. I will not break up. I will not get divorced. And I will put our liberation beyond all of this personality stuff. And you'll get liberated because it's so powerful that way. If it's going well, then you don't think about breaking up. But this has precedent because, again, if the main thing in your life that you're committing to is your liberation for your own benefit, but also for the benefit of all beings and your mirror consort, then you're not going to break up because of differences in life views or whatever. If you're still both practicing in the Dharma, you won't give enough priority to the reasons that could break you up, because the most important reason to stay together is for your Dharma, and it's working. Because if you're driving yourself that crazy with each other's relationship, it's working stuff out. If you have that commitment to each other still, see? Now, if another person says, I don't want to do this mirror consort thing, I'm bailing on you and I'm not going to practice. Based on the circumstances of a situation, you may decide to get together and try to go solo, very difficult, or just split and say, hey, it wasn't my fault, no harm, no foul. If I meet another person in this lifetime and I can do it, then I'll do it again. That is allowed, because if it's out of your hands, it's out of your hands. If your partner bails on you, it's not your fault, right? But in general, your question is it better to be together for a few years? It is, of course. It really is. Eris D. Why do you rely on Enneagram of personality paradigm? I heard you say that you don't rely on psychological paradigms less than 100 years old that have evidence-based successful results. Yeah, the Enneagram paradigm is hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years old. I do love the Enneagram because it is a very ancient methodology. The way I understand it, it arose in Central Asia and had a lot to do with the ancient traditions. And then it was pretty much lost for a long time and then used only by Sufis. The areas that it was very popular were quickly conquered by Islam, and people that converted there, and then the Sufis kind of took charge of it, and it dropped off. I see it used in a very, what can we say, primordial way in the tantric traditions that were from Central Asia that survive now with real tantric numerology. I don't mean the numerology that people say is tantric, but it's really Western with a tantric facade on it. So there is a real tantric numerology, and I think it comes out that way too. But why do I use it? Because it's ancient, because it doesn't deal with psychology, it's dealing with essence. It's making you understand that you have a psychology that covers up your essence, and that your psychology can be an expression of your essence when you understand it correctly, when you understand your type correctly. This is the same as any typing system in Tantra. Are you a peaceful deity, a wrathful deity, like a generating deity, or what else do we have? Peaceful, wrathful, I forget. Blissful? No, we got peaceful, wrathful, generating, accomplishing. No. God, I can't remember what I'm missing. So funny. Got a brain fart for a minute. So there are many ways of typing. And am I a Pashu practitioner, or Virya practitioner, or Divya? See, and these are very primordial, and they're based on how your essence comes through in this lifetime, right? But Western psychology is not based on how your essence come through. It's about working on your psychology, which is your ego structure, and making it functional. There's a place for that, but that's not connected to a wisdom tradition of self-realization. So I don't see any problem with Enneagram there. In fact, it's nothing but a help. It's fantastic, right? If you're looking for some inconsistency in the way I teach or something, that's fine. If you found it, good for you. I don't really mind actually being inconsistent as long as it's truthful. Truthful meaning it gets the result we want. Inconsistency is not a big deal for me. Someone just dropped out, right? No, there it is. Oh, Kita, is that who matches you with one's mirror consort? Who matches you with? How is that? Oh, okay. So we just talked about that. You're here to get realized. Yeah, right on, girl. So me too. Now, like I said, we just covered it, but let's review it again. In the old world, gurus would do it. They'd match you up. They knew the astrology. They could read the karmic lines between you as well, and they would match you up in the kula. Because why would you match them up with somebody outside the kula, and then you got to train them in the whole system and get them in? You want to know the people really well that you match. So sometimes even great local astrologers were brought into it, as well as the guru making the suggestion, and that would be very powerful. But a lot of times it was just the guru or the lama making these suggestions. Yeah, that's who would match you. Nowadays, I don't match anybody because the karma is just too great. People don't understand it anymore. People will break up and then blame you. They don't have that way. We're going to nut it out. The guru got us together so we could see our limitations. Let's push all the way through. And then let's become enlightened beings for the benefit of all beings, become Buddhas. They don't have a way of doing that nowadays. There's just not that kind of, toughness anymore. And I'd rather not be the punching bag for people that, ruin their relationships. So I don't do it. But that's why we suggested that people who want to get into this practice meet each other online, as Kuleshwari, Cecilia de Mello Isuza has set up online this group through Facebook and now through the email, right? It's called the Sparsha group for the touch of consciousness, the touch of Shakti, the physical touch of your partner, Sparsha group. And if anybody in these teachings is interested, you can, what's the contact for it? Her email or Trika Path? Okay. Sukalia is putting up the email right now, the email address, if you want to include yourself in this group of people who are going to connect with each other. Now, I don't even know how they're going to do it, what medium is developed, group chats. I don't know what's happening. Speed dating. I have no idea. All I said was, people said, look, we love Mirror Consort teachings. We've been with you for 10, 15 years, but you never really told us how to do it. How are we going to do it? And I said, well, you need a partner and you got to get them from within the system. So I guess put it out within the system somehow. And so Kuleshwari is taking that bull by the horns and she's doing that. And there's her email address if anybody wants to figure out how to do it. So what I think is nowadays, Akita, you meet people that are following the same path as you and you do it. In Vajrayana, in general, in case you're a Vajrayanist, a Tibetan Tantric Buddhist, it's not happening. It's only happening in one guy's school from England. He's got a very small school, very few students, not a big pool to draw from. And I don't know personally, so I'm not going to say, but there is controversy about whether the system he brought in was as a figment of his own imagination or really a dharma or a mind-received treasure, which makes him like one of the highest Tantric Buddhists ever to have lived, because revealing mind treasures puts you right up there in a very, very elite group of 100 people in all space and time. So people don't know, and I don't know. But he does a kind of mirror consort training, or I heard he does. Talks about it in the book too. He's in England. That's in Vajrayana. In Taoism, it's not a thing anymore. In Dzogchen, it's not a thing. And in Shaivism, it's not a thing. You don't see it. So we have it here in Trikamana Siddha Yoga, and this guy in England. That's all I know of. They probably have it in some Sufi groups, because I remember that Sufism student telling me about how his teacher would work like that, but I don't know of them. So you'd match up, and if you're into Trikamana Siddha Yoga and you're following our method, taking this path, then you'd find it in our group. That's how I would recommend it. If not, maybe what I said helped you with the other groups. Mirad, hello. Could you please elaborate? What if you already have a committed relationship but don't know the astrological chart, and if you find out incompatibleness? Yeah. Unhappy face. So yeah, that's, if you're in committed relationship already, you're married, and that person is a Dharma practitioner following the deep Dharma, okay? And they want to be in a mirror consort relationship with you. It's best if someone from our system is your teacher and their teacher. It's much more difficult if, like, let's say, for example, Mirad, let's say you took initiation with our system after many years and training with us, and you were my student, and you wanted to go mirror consort, but your wife or husband or whatever didn't want to. They were with another teacher. And you said, well, she could come to the training. I wouldn't bar her, of course, or him. They could come to the training. But would they ever be able to get into that level of receiving the transmission? I don't know, because it's not a traditional thing. I'm opening up the door a bit because of these situations. If you're describing, on the other hand, a situation where, so it could work. But if you're describing, on the other hand, a situation where you're with a partner, but they don't really show an interest in being a Dharma practitioner, and you want to know if it can work and it's committed already, to be quite honest, that's difficult, because it does take both sides meeting to produce the maximum effect. That's why it is a committed partner relationship path, right? But you can practice as much as you can on the solo side and you'll still benefit. But it will not be the real fruition of the practice, which needs a partner that you're, tuned with in that way. In no way am I suggesting you should split with that partner. In no way am I saying that, okay? I don't want any of that karma. But it's a fact what I'm saying, because the other partner has to be trained in mirror consort technology, use it to come back at you in those moments of reflection. And if they don't understand the view, if they haven't done 5-10 years of meditation in that view, it's not going to work. Okay. But you can do your own individual and get, a fair bit out of it to be adjunctive to the other path that you follow. William, hey, William. What is the difference between this mirror consort practice and what Dr. Nita teaches? And what is the specific lineage tradition? Which of your teachers transmitted this teaching to you? Okay, so this teaching came to me right from the beginning. When I was first involved in Taoism, I heard about dual cultivation. I found it fascinating. And that was in my teens and early 20s. And then when I went with my first tantric guru, Satyananda, and they were talking about it, I was like, this is interesting. What is this? This really piqued my curiosity. And they were talking about being a tantrika and what it really means and the mirror teachings. So, but it was in a system. It was not a system. There was talk around it and about it and principles of what made it work. And I understood that it was talked about this way after many years because, and Niranjan talked about it like this, because it was a Shambhavapaya thing. It wasn't like you read a text on it because it's a Navapaya. First, put your foot like this, then take a deep breath, hold it, then visualize. It's not like that at all. It's very much a principle-based thing. It very much follows on from the normal training of, like I said in the beginning introduction, you're doing your Hatha yoga, you're doing your whatever you're doing for body cultivation of energy. And then you're going to your Kriya yoga or your deity yoga. And in that phase of practice, in stage 5, 6, 7, 8, you're introduced to mirror consort yoga, and then it goes from there. And then I heard about it in Vajrayana, but I heard about it. I didn't meet anybody who was doing it. I met a lot of lamas who had consorts, but they weren't practicing what I knew of as the Shambhavapaya level of it. At least they weren't talking about it. It looked like they were now and then. You could see things in their eyes, the way they would look and hold for a moment. It's like, but no one ever talked about it. And I never even heard. I know students who were with Dudjom Rinpoche, Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche, Namkha Norbu, very deep level. And I was with Norbu too. And you didn't hear them talk about it. So I don't think it was really there. So that's the origins of it. Is it the same or different than Dr. Nita's? I don't know, because I didn't train with Dr. Nita. Is the straight up answer. I read his book, Karma Mudra, and I read a lot about the sexual practice. And I don't read anything at all about the other level of how to use the partner in a Dzogchen sense, because Dzogchen is not about sexual practice. It's very much, he describes it very much from a Vajrayana level prior to Dzogchen. But of course, you can practice it after you're in the Dzogchen level, but it's used prior to get rid of your lust. That's very clearly made a statement in his book. People jump over it, skip it, don't do it, and that's why they're not getting through their desires and attachments. I agree 100% when it comes to the sexual sadhanas. But I don't read in his book the description of this type of way of mirror concepts I'm talking to you about. Okay? I did read about it a bit in very clear terms, well, sort of clear terms, in Nakpa Chogyam's book, the fellow I described earlier, who says he's a terma revealer, a tertan. But I was like, yeah, if he made it up, it still works. It doesn't matter. But anyway, I read about it a bit there, but not in any other traditional Vajrayana stuff. Who is that? Is that William? Is it different than Nita's? Yeah. So in Nita's book, I did not read any Shambhavapaya level in there. If I missed it, anybody who read the book or who's edited it, if one of the editors is listening now, some of you guys are on our group, feel free to let me know and show me the reference in the book. I'll go back and check it because sure, why not? He's a Dzogchen teacher anyway. It should be there, right? Annalisa Madrone, how does this relate to the experience Daniel Ode describes with his teacher in Tantric Quest? This is a dangerous area for me, Annalisa. I think he's describing something like this, but they don't have a mirror consort relationship. They have a teacher-student relationship. And to be honest, no one knows if it's true, if this really happened or not. I don't know. I can't pass judgment, but it smells a bit funny to me, to be honest. Why would you go and learn all this highest level Tantra, non-dual realization with this great woman who no one's ever heard of before? Just the fact that no one ever heard of her before doesn't make it not possible in India. I met teachers no one's ever heard of in the Western world that I spoke to. But why would you go then out and start a sex massage school? I don't know. Something didn't fit right with that for me. And then the book itself seemed highly stylistic. And so I'm not sure about Daniel Odier. So what can we say about it? How does this relate to the experience, Daniel? If, let's say, the experience, true or false, where she sits, let me see, I think one of them sits with the dragon boy or something like that, and they do this kind of ritual. That's a sexual sadhana. That, again, is not the purpose of the mirror consort training. The mirror consort training is so far beyond sex. It includes, if you want to, like I said, but it's so far beyond sex. It's a meditation moment to moment on your essence nature. That I didn't see really described in there. Okay, the normally open, great name. Would this start at stage 5? What if two people are compatible but at different stages, or would the compatibility prevent that? For everybody who's listening, this is a very salient, relevant, germane, how can I say, important question. If you're not in stage 5, I really wouldn't take this commitment unless you're already married to somebody and you're in stage 3 at least, already married, pretty much really good trajectory in the marriage. You're looking like you're going to make it. You've been together a while and you're both practicing Dharma. Then you might consider it. But it is, yes, it is really a stage 5 and up kind of thing. That's when it was given to people, right? During the Kriya Yoga phase, Deity Yoga phase, etc. After the first phase of practice. Stage 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, it is pretty much a 5, 6, 7, 8 thing. What if two people are compatible but at different stages, or would the compatibility prevent that? Or would the compatibility prevent that? Would this start at stage 5 that are compatible but at different stages? Would it prevent what? Not sure what you're saying, what it would prevent, but okay. So if you're talking about compatibility purely by the stages, I would definitely wait till my partner was equal to my stage if I was in the upper stage. I wouldn't do it before that. Like if I'm at stage 5 and my partner's at 3 and he or she self-assesses they're at 3, wait for 5 because they may not decide it later. It could be coming from wanting to make us happy, you know. Julia Ramsey, is that? Yeah.
What if the one partner's at 5 and the other is at a higher stage? Does that make it compatible enough, or you still need to wait to like the same stage?
So Kalia, my mirror consort, is asking the question: what if what if one is at 5 and one is at 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that, like a compatibility, but both have the base of 5 already, and an incompatibility where one may be higher than the other? Is that a problem? It doesn't present a problem to anybody if you are 5 and your partner's higher. It doesn't present a problem to anybody if you are 7 or 8 or 9 and your partner is 5 or 6 or 7, like below. It doesn't present a problem at all. It's not that it's not maximizing. It's not whatever. Of course, you know, the ideal fantasy is you both are flying in at stage 7 and wah, but you know, those people are out there, but not really. If you read Padmasambhava's story or told by his consort Yeshitsogil or Mandarava's story, you can see that there was a huge disparity in their stages, but that both his consorts caught up really well and maybe even surpassed in some ways. So it wasn't a problem for either of them. I would take that as a good example of how it's not a problem like that. Okay, honey? Julia Ramsey, what is the benefit of having the mutual commitment between two mirror partners versus making a commitment within yourself to see all relating in your life as the Guru Essence mirror? The benefit is that you can't focalize it. And without focalization, we don't get result in the world, Julia. It's too abstract. That's it, just in a nutshell. So, you know, when people say, well, I'm loving all beings, I'm loving all beings, and then the person cuts you off in traffic and you flip them the bird, or you go to get robbed on the street and you're in complete terror and hatred and revenge mode, you know, it's out the window. When you focus it, really focus it, and don't hold such a high bar for yourself when you're with all other beings, it really makes it sacred and special and creates a crucible that allows a way for you to fructify your karmas and open into that in a much deeper way. That's the idea of the commitment. The commitment is one of the greatest things, making that crucible, making that, you know, really powerful container for this experience. Without commitment, let's say I'm polyamorous, you know, without commitment, polyamory, I can just go out when I'm pissed off at my partner and I don't want to see my own reflection, much less reflect my essence. I can just go to my next partner. If I'm by myself, how am I ever really going to be challenged? Now think about it this way. You're not challenged by everybody in the world and perceiving them as mirror consort. You're not challenged by that because you're not with them 24/7. You're not 365 a year. You're not with them like that. So if we're really honest, no matter how much someone annoys you at work, you go home at night and they don't go home with you, you know? So you don't really get to see it. You don't really get it to work out. The advantage is being with you all the time. The advantage is creating that crucible. Okay? Donald, question: what to do please when after 20 years with your mirror, one person goes much deeper into yoga tantra path and a big mismatch develops? How to harmonize the mismatch, please? So I think we talked about that. Yeah, that's pretty much covered. Donald, if there's any part of that I didn't cover that's more specific to you, let me know, because we definitely covered that. Ava, never mind my early question. Oops, I think I might have minded it already. Where are we? It just jumped really big for me. It just loaded a whole bunch. I lost it. Oh, here we go. Carolia, nice plug for the astrology session. How much for a relationship one? Yeah, I hope you're joking. It's not really a plug like I'm self-promoting. I think it's really important to do. I am an astrologer, as you know. I think it is really important to do. And if you are joking, that's great. I love a good joke. But it's not really a plug, to be honest. I think anybody getting in a relationship today, not in one already, but it helps for that too, so you can understand each other and have more compassion for each other. But anyone who's getting in a relationship today, as a Dharma person, going into mirror consort relationship, without a good Indian astrology chart from somebody you trust who's in a deep non-dual tantra kind of path as an astrologer, I think you're at a huge disadvantage of comparing yourselves and seeing how well you'll match, what cycles you'll run. Does it have longevity, you know? When I was younger, Carolia, I used to be in the place of, I'm ultimate Shiva, you know, I choose whatever I want and I'm powerful enough to make it all work. Well, no, I'm not. 2 relationships I wasn't powerful enough to make work already as marriage. So I'm in my 3rd, you know. So I think it really behooves us to have that information and be with a partner who's open to receiving it too, about each other and together, so that you can have the best understanding of how you merge together if you choose to be mirror consorts. How much is a relationship? I don't know. How much is it? The synastry chart? Because we do both charts. Yeah, $200. We have to look at both charts. One is $150 for a Nadi reading. A 200 for one. Wow, why did we do 2 for 1? Should be 400. Okay, so it's 2 for 1. It's 2 for 1, 200 for 1. So that's fantastic. You got to have a little comic relief, break it up a bit. Okay, simple, wild, free. Can you give a more concrete or practical example of the experience of plumbing the depths of your partner? I just mean that over years, you're going to develop more and more compassion, more and more sensitivity, and you're going to go through layers of understanding who they are. You know, you and your partner don't even know yourself fully in that sense. What are your deepest karmas of your treasury of worms, and how do they come out in your day-to-day interactions? So over years, you're going to see that more and more, and it's going to become more and more a beautiful dance. When you see the limitations, more compassion, more spacious hosting, more ability to allow your partner the space to bring it out. They trust that you're not going to run away. They trust that you're not going to freak out and punch them in the face, you know, emotionally or physically. They trust that it's all going to be okay, and that this is what the path is about, and that this will take us into a direct realization of our essence if we're at that stage, or just clearing the way for more of that later. So that's what I mean. When you say a practical example of plumbing the depths, I really don't want to talk about any of my partner's depths that came up in our relationship. You can imagine that's not stuff for public consumption unless she wants to talk about it herself. I could talk about my own, but let's see. How does that differentiate from deepening your understanding of their personality or psychology? I don't know. Maybe you have to draw a line somewhere between psychology and deeper karmas. But there is a place where the deeper karmas aren't, I wouldn't list them as psychology anymore, not related to the personality, the character, the ahankara structure, but related to the deeper conditioning that we have, which is outside of that and really takes on universal kind of principles, like the pure principle of conflict. Let's say you get below all your psychology, personality stuff, and your partner finds out that their thing is conflict. And you get all the way down and you find out that yours is nihilism, you know, not really psychological things. These are deep karmas from really deep stuff from past lives and all that kind of thing. So to me, it's not the same. If you want to call it psychology, I don't really want to argue at all about what you call psychology or not. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Because anyway, when that content is there, or when the patterning of energy is recognized, that becomes a springboard in the most advanced training, like the fish jumping, right into your essence every single moment. So at that point, content doesn't even matter. But in the beginning, content matters a lot. Otherwise, you're not going to make it long enough to the place where content doesn't matter. Does that make sense? You got to work with content until content doesn't matter. And this is normal progression. This is why the path of mirror consorts, the way of mirror consorts, that we designed has stages to bring us slowly into that. Otherwise, you get slammed in the beginning and you miss it. Neza Slack, I guess your name. I love your name there. It's interesting. What are some good resources or examples to read about mirror consorts? That's like I said, it's an oral thing. I don't really know any. I talked about this one Lama from England. What's the name of his book about mirror consorts? Union of Sun and Moon? So I think it's called Union of Sun and Moon. It's a mirror consort book. It's very hard to read. If English isn't your first language, you'll have to have a translator, and I mean it for real. I'm an English reader at a very high level, academic level, and I had a hard time with a lot of the words and the wording, the way he does it. He does it on purpose to make it inaccessible, so you have to really work hard and be present. I get it. But anyway, that's the only book I know at all on this topic. And there's Christian books on this if you're into Christianity, but I'm not into Christianity as a path, so I don't use those paths, those books. But there is this one book by this fella. I think it's Nakpachogyam. At least then. I think he changed his name again. He's got all different names. Anyway, I don't know if this guy's for real. The problem is I don't know if he's for real. I think the principles that I'm talking about, if I remember right from the book, I read it a really long time ago. I think they struck me as, this is nice. But then he got into his version of it that got more technical. And I didn't understand what he was talking about because it's stuff we don't do, practices we don't do, and a theory, kind of a theory that we don't have. So I left it over there. But if you want to read it, that might help. No, that's the same author, but different book. Okay. So I hope that helps. Maybe you like his book. Maybe you want to go study with him, whatever. I kind of don't know if he's the real thing or not. Camilla, you chicken, retracted your message. Simple Wild Free. Can you talk about how the two partners' energy bodies interact? How does this affect the psyche? Yeah, the two energy bodies, first of all, want to be brought to a very high level of power, of purity, of organization, of revelation and enhancement, all that kind of thing. That's really important. That's why it's hard to do it with somebody who's following the path. And the interaction of these energy bodies, when you play this role, is the interaction of bimba pratibimba. I'm going to use the Sanskrit for this one for a moment. That is the source and the reflection, the bimba pratibimba, where one of you acts as, you take the other one as source, essence, dharmakaya, sambhogakaya, and you're going to be the one recognizing that as your own essence in them. Boom, boom. Okay, they have their essence in that clear mirror of their own essence. Boom, I get revelation of my own. That is a direct interaction of the energy body, if you will, but it's the energy body of the highest level, not the dualistic energy, not the non-dualistic, not the semi-non-dualistic energy, but the non-dualistic energy, not the aparashakti, if you need those words, or the paraparashakti, but the parashakti. So it's that level of energy body, the energy body that is already there, already developed, only to be revealed and enhanced. It's not, I mean, in the lower levels, yeah, your other lower level anavapaya, apara energy bodies are interacting of your own individual energies, especially in the sexual yogas and in the processing moments of working out your psychology. But as far as the deeper understanding of the energy body interaction, the sexual sadhanas in the semi-non-dual level, the central level of training, they're using each other. You're using each other's energy there to bring yourself into a higher state of energy. To get that reflection power for each other, recognition and reflection power for each other. And then, like I said, the last step is you just have the mirror there. What else did you ask? Oh, so that's a bimba pratibimba in the Sanskrit. In the Tibetan way of talking about it, they call it mabu, which is mother and son. So where you're seeing your partner as the mother and you're the son, the reflected essence, trying to recognize your own mother nature. And they're doing that for you too. So it's exactly the same as pratibimba, bimba pratibimba in that sense. But I don't want to leave out all the Tibetan readers and studiers in this group, right? So it's like that, okay? That's, talk about the 200, how's it, okay. How does it affect the psyche? Okay. So yeah, the more you're working your energy body in this way in the path, and the more you're intermingling with each other, the more you're refining the sense of the non-dual essence of your own energy body / mind. And therefore it's going to enhance your psyche. I mean, your psyche is going to be embraced by this greater spiritual reality that we call our essential nature, right? Including our energy of the essential nature that's non-dual. So that's how it would affect it. Another retracted message. And how much does what one partner puts in their body affect the other partner? Drugs, alcohol, a lot. A lot. I mean, these paths have rules of conduct for a reason. You can't have a partner who's polluting themselves and practice mirror consort training. If you're practicing the path of poisons, okay, but you're both on the path of poisons. And the path of poisons is not a self-constructed path where I decide to do psilocybin one weekend, lysergic acid the next weekend, DMT the next weekend, synthetic form, ayahuasca natural next, DMT next weekend. No, I'm like an astronaut that does all the psychedelic drugs, and I'm drinking and I'm partying because I'm a wild and free, crazy wisdom person. And see, I'm doing my path because I'm also practicing Vajrayana at the same time, or Shaivism, or Trikamasa yoga. No. Absolutely not. It doesn't work. Oh, do you have wine with dinner? Yeah. If you don't get intoxicated, that's just a beverage. Do you have, do you get intoxicated? Not a good idea on any kind of drug. You don't want to get intoxicated by infatuation, much less a real drug that's in your physical body affecting your channels. And you certainly don't want to have your partner having that experience. Eventually, drugs of all kinds, misused, not following the path of poison underneath a tantric guru, eventually the drugs will affect your channels. And I mean quite radically affect your channels. People love to get high, I get it. But people that do a lot of psychedelics, there's no way around it. Their channels actually change. As the biochemistry changes, the channels changes. And vice versa. And they end up in the God realm. And the marijuana abusers end up in the demon realm, in the animal realm. And the speed freaks end up in the demon realm and the Titan realm. And, it goes on, Coke, whatever. So you really don't want to have that in there. And I'm really glad you brought that up so we could have a fuller discussion on this path, the way of mirror consorts, because we're in a drug culture today. Everybody accepts drugs as normal. And when I tell people we don't take drugs, they freak out. They say, well, some of my greatest breakthroughs came with drugs. And I go, yeah, but where are you now? Breakthroughs don't mean squat. It's what you can do on a continual basis. And the problem is, and this is a little bit too high philosophy for this talk, not talking down to anybody. I'm just saying that it would take more time to discuss this properly. I know you could all understand it if I had another hour or half hour, whatever. But any kind of agent that causes you to have a state of revelation, necessarily that state of revelation is not the ultimate. It can never be. If it's DMT that gave it to you, if it's ecstasy that gave it to you, MDMA, whatever, it's never going to be the ultimate. Frog medicine, toads of the Sonora, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was caused, therefore it'll never be the ultimate essence. So is it important for knocking open your blinders? Great. Knock them open once or twice. Then go back to the path, because Rainbow Light Body Masters in our tradition don't need drugs. In fact, they say it's a problem at a certain point. So yeah, I don't want it in my partner, definitely. And you shouldn't in yourself either. Negative emotions, I'm glad you include that too. There's a certain point where, hey man, you can't drag that stuff around. But we know a depression, postnatal depression, let's say your partner has a baby, she's depressed for 5 years, you got to wear that. You're in a mirror consort relationship, you got to wear it. You got to help them as much as you can, support space, you committed. That loyalty, that impeccability, that perseverance, that dedication builds that Samarpanakaya dedication body. That's just as much a part of your individual nadi that was predetermined as everything else, right? But if they're just like a negative person, always being negative, not really wanting to practice the Dharma, resisting the Dharma, that's not a mirror consort. You let it go at that point. Eva, thanks for the answer. Anyway, really good, helpful, great. So Kalia, you can write to, great. Eva, can you recommend any good astrologers? Yeah, if you want to do one in person, you could tell us where you are and see if we know one where you live. If not, Sukalia and I do them online. We do them together. So we could do one together for you. Mahakala astrology we practice. Ava, just in general, I could use one. Good. Oh, duh. And Suki does it. Akita, thank you. You're very welcome. Donald Morris, question. What does the mirror consort model say, please, about the polarities in different chakra? Male positive polarity, female receptive polarity. How to work with polarities in the mirror. Donald, this is probably going to bum you out. I'm sorry to tell you this because you're such a sweet guy and I love your questions and I love your enthusiasm for learning. So maybe it won't, but there are no polarities in chakras. I just got to tell you straight up. If I had a dime for every time someone asked a question that I learned innocently, enthusiastically from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about with chakras, I could buy a 747. It makes me sad. It used to make me irate. Now I just get really sad. Chakras don't have polarities. They certainly don't have male or female, masculine or feminine. Chakras do not have polarities. Chakras are transducers, portals of consciousness energy. They're step up, step down transformers. They're gateways. They're not things. They're certainly not gender biased. They're certainly not polar. Even if you don't like gender and you want to say, no, I didn't mean that. I mean like a plus and a minus. They're not. There are no polarities in chakras. It just isn't that way. So relieve yourself. In my opinion, I really like you. And I want to tell you that I would relieve yourself of this kind of an idea completely. You don't need to work out with polarities in chakras. How to work with polarities in the mirror. That other part of the question, or the question there is, what does Mirror Consort want to say about polarities in different chakras? Okay, there are no polarities in chakras. That's what Mirror Consort and all of Shaiva Yoga, Shaiva Tantra, Tibetan Yoga, Tibetan Tantra, Bumpo, Buddhist Tantra, Taoist Yoga in the chakra. All of these systems say there are no polarities in the chakras, right? Anytime on my podcast, a teacher who taught you that would like to come on and debate with me, it would be most welcome. It would be wonderful to be able to set that straight for so many people on the podcast. Okay. Now, but your end part is how to work with polarities in the mirror. So forget chakras. If you're talking about polarities, I really know what you mean. No. Can you write and clarify what you mean about polarities in this case? And I'll be happy to answer. The most profound spiritual experience I've had was the first night I met my current partner. Awesome. I had an experience with her of being indivisible, eternal, lacking nothing. It just jumped. Where'd it go? Continued below. Lacking nothing. A feeling of reuniting with my ultimate essence. Beyond this feeling, there was what felt like a vast, subtle field of energy, a liberating open field. Beyond this feeling, there was what felt like a vast, subtle field of energy. That's the thing what repeated. Field. I've had several significant merging experiences with past lovers and partners. Nothing like this, however. We have not had the same experience again, except for a lesser, similar one a day or two after. Is this a good indication that we may be meant to be mirror consorts? I've got a funny answer to it, which you may not find very funny. With my second wife, the main reason we stayed together and got together was exactly what you're saying. It was freaking interstellar. The first night we got together was like, I don't even want to describe it because I can't. And we thought, this must mean a lot, and then we looked at the compatibility in the charts and thought, well, it's rough, but not too rough. We could work with it. There's some good stuff too. Doesn't commitment trump at all, beat it all, Anyway, it didn't work for us. But it may work for you. Don't let me discourage you. Let me describe what you could be experiencing and why it's important to discuss this. And I'm really glad you asked this question. Relating to another human being has been my number one way to open spiritually. That is to my gurus, lamas, and to my consort. And random sexual experiences, either with, before I was married, either with random sexual partner or a person I was dating. Some of those experiences tore my blinders off more than, and I mean this, any drug I've ever taken. Because some people are geared that way, that sexual energy and sexual encounters will blow their mind and show them their own essence nature. Now, that does have a little something to do with who you're with, and it does have something to do astrologically with the greater time and space that you're in, as the environment of time and space you're in. So it's your time and space, the time and space of the partner, and time and space of the greater. They all come together and boom, it can really open. Trying to reproduce that on a day-to-day regular level, it's usually not possible because those cycles are massive and they don't come around every other day. That can create problems. So it's like when you go to do practice, spiritual practice, and it's not the same as an acid trip. And you go, oh, acid's better because it's more far out. No, it's not better because it's more far out, actually. But when you're practicing with your partner, the sexual sadhanas, and you have this kind of aptitude, it will be a beautiful doorway for you, a better entry point for you than someone who doesn't have that aptitude, which can be read in your astrology chart. You don't have that aptitude for that kind of practice together, then it's a harder journey. It's not harder, but it just won't have that, 4th of July fireworks kind of experience that you'll have. But you said, is it a good reason or an indication that you're mirror consorts? I would say don't use that as that indication. From my experience, and not just mine, I heard it from many other people too. It's better to see if that was a one-off or a sign by having the compatibility checked, again, by a good astrologer who can read your karma. It's often like, do you have very powerful fifth house, 8th house, 12th house karma with the other person and your own capacity, blah, 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 that could use this, that it could be something that could really work it. Yeah. And sometimes one person in the relationship has that kind of power and the other person doesn't. The other person has the ability to open through sexual energy and the other person doesn't. And that can be an interesting thing to navigate in a mirror consort relationship. One person can be left thinking, oh, I'm no good, or I'm not good enough, or when it really just means it isn't one of their major doorways into their essence. Abhinavagupta was one of those people where it was one of their major doorways into their essence, and he laid tremendous emphasis on the sexual practice, and he had 2 consorts. And he just made it like a huge thing, took it above what it was before in the Kaula tradition. So I think, that I personally think that was his prejudice, because you can't say that the orgasmic experience is the exact same thing as realizing your essence unless you are one of these people who goes through the 5th, 8th, 12th house doorway into their essence this way. Because I think he gives a lot of people the wrong impression by saying that in his text. And a lot of people that are going for it going, well, but I'm not having this experience. I'm having an orgasm. It's kind of cool, semi-non-dual, maybe a little non-dual, but it's not like blowing my doors off and putting me into my true nature forever, the way he describes it in Tantra Loka. So, I think it's a dangerous thing to think of it this way as a be-all and end-all. It's more like for whom and when. So if you have that aptitude, that's a really great thing. And if you don't have that aptitude, not a big deal. But I think astrology would go a long way towards helping you understand that. And more like the dialogue with the astrologer, describing your previous experiences and your current experience with your lover. And then if you had your lover's chart and you did a synastry chart that we were just talking about, that I was joking we should charge double for. When you have a synastry chart, then you can start to see, is there more potential? Now I'm talking about pure potential now, karmically, to trigger off these experiences of realizing your true nature through sexuality based on the charts. You can see that in there a lot of times. But remember this, everybody who's listening, following the practices, you can go outside of your karma and have the opening into your nature at any moment in mirror consort yoga, regardless of how it lines up with the sexual power or not. It could be during sex, could be during making dinner. Doesn't matter. Okay. So remember that potential is not bound by karma, but is more likely to happen when you have that good karma. Okay. Okay. Hopefully that was a great question, and hopefully it helps you with it. What are all these stages with numbers? Donald, yeah. Foundations of Trikamasa Yoga. No, sorry. The prelims program. Prelim program goes through the stages of going from ignorance to ultimate enlightenment as a Buddha, a fully realized universal being, and 12 stages to do that. That's explained in the outer level during that course. Okay. TrikaPrelims.com. Type in TrikaPrelims.com and you'll go right to the course. Simple Wild Free. What kind of pillar compatibility do you suggest for relationships as a minimum? Oh, that's too hard to say. I got to say, if you know a bit of astrology, I can't say, because you could have, 2 pillars that are really challenged, 2 that are pretty good, but a lot of other things in the chart. Yeah, it's a for whom and when thing. So good question, but it's just too detailed. And to put it out right now and let everybody hear it and look at their chart and go, oh, we're not going to make it would be terrible. Or, oh, we're really going to make it would be terrible. Gong Mystic. Nice. I like these names. You guys choose cool names. I'm going to come up with something groovy like that. Captain Crunch. I'm going to be Captain Crunch. How long would it take to receive the teachings in order to begin the journey? How long would it take to receive the teachings? Well, you come to the trainings right away. Boom. Just start doing them and racking them up. The prelims I put out are the 6 realms. We're offering that by video coming up soon. If you want to do the 6 realm yoga, it's even stronger, but it starts with the 6 realms. Enneagram in person, because we need the group in here to interact to make that really powerful. So that'll be done in person. So you do that when that comes up. The communication trainings we'll probably offer starting next year. It's all about COVID. If COVID lets up and people aren't afraid of the vaccine and the vaccine actually works, and we know that herd immunity can't be established because you don't get long-term immunity. So you get 5 months or something. And so we don't know how it's going to go. But as soon as we start offering these things to communicate, the special communication training, the Awakening to Red Bindu training, we ran one already in February, and we're going to run another one. So these can be started right away at Gong Mystic. So how long would it take? Fast as you can rack them up. I'm not trying to hold anything back, believe me. Carleo, thank you. So does that say 200 or 2,000? I can't see. 200 for a compatibility chart. Can definitely see the wisdom in investing in that info. Yeah, I was teasing you. Well, thanks for the plug yourself. Okay. Yeah, it is. It's good. It's really good. God, I've got to tell you all that when I married my second wife, the decision was made after we saw our first Indian astrologer. I was a new-blooded tantrika on the block. I just finished my 18-month solo retreat, just moved back to New York City from Australia, and moved into an apartment with the love of my life, and thought this could be it. We went to see a Vedic astrologer who was visiting in town from the guy who owns the magazine shop that I would go buy my magazines at on the corner. All those shops are owned by Indian, Pakistani dudes. And he had his uncle or something visiting, a really old guy, brilliant, now I know, really brilliant Indian astrologer. And what did he say to me? Saturn was over my head, and I was blinded by Saturn at that time, couldn't see. I said, how's our compatibility? He goes, yeah, okay, feigning to not have good English. And he said, can you wait until after June to get married? I'm like, no, I can't. Going back to Australia. We've been here a year to work with my brother who was very ill at that time. And we got to go back. I got to get back to my life in Australia. My girlfriend has to go back. We'd like to be married. We've been together a year. We want to get married. He's like, can you wait till after June? He asked me like 3 or 4 times in this session. And each time I was like, what is this guy, deaf or something? When I was the one who was deaf, to be quite honest, blind and deaf, both. You might as well add mute to it. I said nothing of value at that point. And if I'd have listened to him, I really have the sneaking suspicion that I would have, in those months I saw him in like December or January, in those 6 months, I would have figured out that this is my sister. The passion would have died, because it did really quickly. It was already dying by the time we got married. And I thought, well, that's normal, right? But we have an astrological configuration that makes us brother and sister. So what was the question of this one? What was it I was answering, hon? Yeah. So you said, okay. You said it's a Carolia. You said there's a wisdom in investing in it. Yes. Not only wisdom in investing in it, but let me add from my own personal experience, wisdom in listening to the advice and listening to it over and over again, over your initial resistance, over your initial inability to hear it like I had. All right. Kali Ma's here. You've answered already. Oh, I see. You weren't chicken. You just answered already. All right. Neza. I wanted to ask also about some examples of accomplished mirror consorts such as Padmasambhava and Yeshitsogil. Thank you. Yeah, great examples to read. Read Song of Yeshitsogil. It's a good example of how, but here in this case, she didn't have equal mirror consort. She had her guru as her mirror consort. And that's like really heavy. That's the best you can get, all in one, I didn't get lucky that way. My wife did, but I didn't. What's the function of passion in the mirror consort relationship? Can it be a vehicle? Absolutely. Absolutely. I really wish you were at our dinner table last night. We were talking about dinner. Was it the passion talk? Yeah. If we don't have passion, we can't get compassion. If we don't have warmth, we can't activate our meditation. Milarepa said this. Everybody in Tantra has said this. Everybody has said this in the Mahasiddha path. Passion is crucial. In fact, there's a tantric saying that says, give me the angry, give me the fearful, give me the ones that act up and break the rules. But please, God, this is a guru saying, please, God, don't give me the one who is lazy. So in other words, if there's no passion, you got nothing to work with. I was with a training with many, many different tantric teachers at different times where they've said how important passion is, but not passion at the hedonistic, dualistic level, but important to have as an ingredient. So I would say if the relationship doesn't have passion because of things I said before, you're just too old now to bother. You're so deep down your spiritual path that it doesn't matter. Or you just never had that astrological confluence of turning each other on. Don't worry about it. If you're getting towards realization or you realized already, who cares? But if you have a choice and you're in that phase of choosing, find out if passion is possible, real passion, because it will fuel the process forever as long as you can transform it. So it's definitely a vehicle. Absolutely not a vehicle. It's like the vehicle. Without passion, you can't get to compassion. Okay. Other pup. I love that tidbit. Chakras are transducers. Yeah, they're not things. If you do the way of fire with us, let me put a plug in here for Kundalini Hatha Yoga. I have very, very little respect for what's out there as Kundalini Hatha Yoga because people just did not have the proper training. And now it's become commercialized and nobody learns it with a guru anymore. I learned it from my yoga teacher in a 500-hour training. So, I mean, look, you guys, I don't want to offend you. I know that's how a lot of you learned your yoga, but what I'm saying here, please, and that's okay. Help people with yoga, make them healthy. I don't mean to put that down. I don't want to be misunderstood, misinterpreted. What I'm saying here is that these deep secrets of Tantra, they're secrets, and they're said to be kept secret. You have to learn them from a guru to really understand the energy system, really understand the energy body, really understand even the process of how you would use the physical body to create a rainbow light body and get fully liberated. That's the secret, obviously. And when I see the stuff out there about chakras, how it's psychologized and new ageized and bullshitized by people who just make stuff up, I feel sad because you can't use it. It's going to take you nowhere and delude you. And then you wasted your life. And that person has huge karma on them for teaching such crap. There you go. I vented. Thank you for that clarification of chakras. My husband and I had figured that out on our own. Good. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. You can smell the swampland in Jersey if you drive through it. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know this stuff. Thank you for these insights. Interesting that it was a super moon the night we had that experience, right? Maybe an influence, as you say. Also, the experience was post-sex, laying together. Beautiful. Well, if polarities don't exist at some granularity, then that is a surprise. Oh, it's some granularity within chakras? Yeah, no, they don't at all. We project duality. Polarity is duality, and we project it. It's not in the chakras. Chakras are direct emanations of your essence. That's why people say, oh, I'm going to do Reiki on your chakras. BS. I call bullshit right away. You can't. You can't touch my chakras. It's my essence. It's my essence nature. It's not an energy. It's not an object. You can't touch it. You can't manipulate it. You can't open it. You can't close it. You get hit by a car, you get an operation that cuts out a part of your body. It doesn't affect your chakras, folks. Okay. BS, total BS out there. You're breathing and huffing and puffing and doing your pranayama to open up a chakra. It's not the breathing and huffing and puffing that does it alone, because other people can do it doing Wim Hof breathing, no chakra opening, holding their breath for 5 minutes longer than you can in a kumbhaka, no chakra opening. It's con energy, consciousness plus energy, con energy, your intention, your elevation, your aspiration, your blessings of the lineage masters, plus what you do, huffing and puffing or whatever, then your chakras respond. It's really important to understand this. I'm getting a little off track, but not really, because you guys need to know this, and it does relate to our consort path as far as dual cultivation. So you're surprised. Yep, Donald, you can be surprised that that happens, right? Like we get bad teachings and like, whoa, really? So the mirror consort model is based on a simple concept of polarity. Simple, profound. Yeah. That the universe and you are one, except you're a mini version of it. So you want to join it and you're going to see it reflected in your consort. That may be simple, but that's really profound. Tahoe Tantra. I love all of those trainings. All awesome. I haven't taken yours specifically, but the combination of trainings is so wholesome. Yeah, it's lovely. And we love to see you at them. Also curious, Eris. Also curious, my partner and I's overall connection, feel of a sibling nature nature in some ways. Virtually no sex. Okay. I see what you're trying to say. Yeah. I'd get a session with some good astrologer. And look at that. Unless it's no problem for you anymore because you're beyond it and you don't care. Ava, is the Kundalini Hatha Yoga similar to what Rudy called class? Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, let me explain this to other people. Swami Rudrananda called class when he would sit down and do eye-to-eye meditation, transmission eye-to-eye with the Kriya Yoga practice, which was not finished before Rudy died. He was still trying to figure out how to make it work the best way. And I'm speaking from a place of understanding because I completed the whole Rudy system under arguably his number one student in the world. And it is related to that in that Kriya Yoga is part of the way of fire at some point. In Kundalini Hatha Yoga, at a certain stage in level 3, we start really jamming on the Kriya Yoga, and it continues into level 4, into the enhancement practices and so on. But Rudy, what is it? The question exactly? Is Kundalini Hatha Yoga similar to what Rudy called class? Yeah, in that way it's similar. Yeah, we refine and take the energy and move it. We just use a lot of physical practice and breathing practice that Rudy never used, and mantra that Rudy never used, because Rudy had a very high level capacity that he developed on his own, and he would bring students directly into the semi-non-dual level of practice. That was his gift, and that was his misfortune, because when you saw how his students kind of went crazy after he died, they needed more of a systematic approach, a beginning to end comprehensive system that had more preliminaries, more foundation work. And Rudy just didn't offer that because he was beyond that when he learned himself. So his system started where he was, which was like a very high stage 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. So it's similar in some ways, but not in others. It's similar in that we do Kriya Yoga in that, of course. Vajrabodhi. Are consort connections astrologically fated? No. I mean, you can see there is compatibility, but you can't say this is the one you have to be with. Even if a Nadi reader in India tells you the name of the person and you meet them, don't believe it. Don't believe that it's fated as in set in stone. Everything is co-created, okay? Can true consort connection be missed? Or if it is real, will two people eventually come together? I believe it can be missed. I believe we can miss our true consort connection because are we awake all the time? But nature abhors a vacuum. You miss it, you work on yourself, then your true consort comes again. It's just a different person, right? The world is not linear, my friends. So true consort can exist over and over again. Depends on us. Belinda O'Day, yoga, travel, and wellness. Would K2 in the 12th in both charts be a good indication that you are well matched and could go all the way? Or is that thinking too much? No, it's not too basic. It's just for whom and when. There's so many other factors. My wife, I would never say that's it. You guys are really, set as mirror consorts. It would be a disservice, a big disservice. We really have to look at the totality. By itself, no, it wouldn't indicate that. Ava, which student of Rudy did Lair Short? Simple Wild Free. In my opinion, he's the best of them all in the public. I know there's some private people who teach really wonderfully, like down in LA, Hollywood, some in Europe, but of the big ones that were out there that I met, I was really impressed with how Lair took Rudy's work that extra step, as Rudy had prophesied that Lair would do with Dingo Kensei Rinpoche. Anyway, Simple Wild Free. When can passion be an obstacle in the mirror consort relationship? Whenever passion is unmatched between the two and can't be reconciled by the practitioners, that's an obstacle. The second one is, and that's inborn, right? That's inborn. I'm super passionate. My partner is totally cold, ice cold Shiva meditating on a glacier. It's going to be a problem if the hot one can't find a way to transmute. Passion is a problem whenever it's treated as a dualistic reality based on hedonism and dualism. That's when passion becomes a serious problem. And that's actually what ends marriages. Namkha Nurbu has said that, and it's a wonderful thing to quote here for a moment. Think about it in your mirror consort selections with each other. If you are hot for somebody, super hot, and you have transcendental sex or just raunchy, full-on, sweaty, screaming sex that you've never had before, and you're so attracted to each other, and that goes on for a year or two, and you think, man, this is it. I'm getting married. That's it. And then you get married based on that is a lot of the reason. And you get married and you get together and it starts slowing down because it will. It'll start slowing down over time, especially if you're, spiritually evolving. It'll slow down and slow down. And then you'll be like, oh, it's hardly there. And then it can go to the point where the husband and wife hate each other and start fighting. No passion, and beyond passion, don't even want to be in the same room with each other. Before, they couldn't wait to be in the same room with each other, tearing their clothes off. Now they don't even want to be in the same room with each other. The lawyers have to drag them into the same room together to try to do some mediation, maybe the court, right? It's a really good example of relationships based on passion, unless you're spiritualizing as Dharma partners in Mirror Consort training. I used to call this Dharma partnership a long time ago, and sometimes people would be married in that case too. If you're not in a real Dharma partnership, a commitment to your liberation and liberation of the other person, then it could be a serious obstacle to passion, because, if you're keeping at the level of the hedonism and the object energy, and if the other person's going on or the other person can't match it, it's a huge obstacle. I wouldn't get married on that basis. I wouldn't take a Mirror Consort on that basis for sure. Belinda, down in Australia, right? What do you think about soulmates or twin flames in the context of Mirror Consorts? The concept of a soulmate from the New Age perspective is complete fabrication. More people have ruined their lives waiting for their soulmate or thinking that they have their soulmate. I was pretty interested in a bit laughing, having a bit of a humor moment when I heard recently about the lady who wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. She found her one soulmate in the world, and I guess it wasn't. Then she went out and divorced that one and married a woman. So, I think it's just a New Age concept that sold a lot of books and generated a massive economy. Man, I lived through that in the 80s. If you're not over 55 or whatever, you don't know what I'm talking about. It was a mess. Let's not repeat that cycle. Let's not look for soulmates. Let's say randomly the great, magnanimous, compassionate nature of essence of the universe has brought me into the orb of another human being who appreciates me and I appreciate them. And we're going to look at our charts and we're going to stay together for a few years and see if we have steady meditation practice. And then we're going to decide then. It's a nice, well-grounded, nice way to think about it. Okay. Is there any more or no? Oh, the email question. Okay. One email question came in earlier. Let me just say, hi, Brian. I have a question I'd like to submit online. But is it required for both partners to follow the way of the Mirror Consort as their primary path to spiritual realization? Or can one or both follow another path? Water, fire, mind. Oh, yeah. As primary way with Mirror Consort. Sure. I would hope that anybody who's married and in our system, in a committed monogamous marriage, and both partners are practicing, well, and one's doing way of water, one's doing way of fire, I would hope it would be lovely, but of course it doesn't have to. They might not have the capacity or the aptitude or the interest. It'd be great, let's say, it'd be great if then they both had a minor in the Mirror Consort way of Mirror Consort, or one had a major in it and the other one was the minor. Let me just put out my view for this, my vision for this, when it all occurred to me that we should go public with Mirror Consort training. I mean, I couldn't be teaching it if I didn't get into it myself. And I really never taught it because I never found my consort. And now I did. So I'm teaching it now. And what my real vision is that a lot of the paths are a little more difficult to practice. The Mirror Consort one takes a very high aptitude intellectually, philosophically. It takes a very steady meditation practice. It takes a heart of strength and goal and power. But if you have those things, you'll go really far. And I just see in my mind beautiful trainings of 100 or 200 or 300 couples sitting there, doing the meditations together, receiving the teachings together, going for initiations together, just how beautiful it could be, honestly, how a wonderful world, as Satchmo said, it could be. Because a lot of us are going to be in relationships. That's it. And if you're not in a relationship yet, let me remind myself to say to you, you can do the solo practices up to a certain point as well. And that's also helpful, right? But I see this beautiful kind of spiritual revolution almost in a way. I want to use that word very softly, where this could be the way for modern people. There's not enough time to do a lot of heavy practice. I'm not trying to discourage people from doing the other 4 ways. I really want people to do meditation and yoga and so on, way of warrior and ritual, but minoring in this or majoring in it is really powerful and really awesome. Because for integration practice, it's hard to find anything better. more efficient, more practical, more beautiful. What brings out the virtues, the four immeasurables of peace and joy or joy and equanimity and love and compassion, like more than any, it just brings it out so beautifully, so viscerally, right? Okay, there's the vision on the world. And I think we covered that pretty well. I thank you very much for your questions, because I never would have thought of half of that stuff to apply to the training. And hopefully we'll see you all at Mirror Consort training in the future. Cheers. Sarva Mangalam. Be good to everybody. Love everybody.